Hey, what's happening my tribe, Balrog here. Today the bleed train is back again after patch 1.06 and honestly you have to try Morgott's curved sword on your playthrough. I always pass on it because there were better options in damage, but what I didn't know is that with the right build, this curved greatsword can bring to the table a mix of great damage, bleed buildup, and an awesome weapon art called Cursed Blood Slice that does a quick charge, then a long arc slice attack followed by a powerful burst of flames with the chance of doing an additional attack. So all of that with the spawn on power stancing bleed build, it turns out to be a quite powerful bleed and fire setup that is versatile and a feast to the eyes. So if you have not tried Morgott's curved sword, please, now's the time to do it and just own everything in Elden Ring. If you enjoy this kind of builds, please hit that like button and subscribe down below to be part of the tribe. If you have played with Morgott's curved sword before with a powerful build, please comment down below your thoughts on it and experience. I'm interested to see what build you use it with. With that, let's take a deep dive into this build. Quick shout out to our sponsor AOE.com. If you don't have the time to grind for runes or items in Elden Ring and need them real fast, use my code BAL for 3% off. As always, I'm doing a full playthrough when testing a build, and with Morgott's curved sword, it's essentially a bleed build, but with a mix of fire damage too. The way I approached enemies or bosses with it was depending on the type or size and their speed. You could start with a jump attack followed by your power stancing combo, and lastly using your weapon art to finish this combo or to regain distance with the enemy. Or you can start with your weapon art and hit it twice and then doing a jump attack and do power stancing combos or more weapon art. The choice is yours, how you feel more comfortable with it, and makes you land the most hits. That's the most important part. If the enemy hits you back every time or is too quick, you should rely only on jump attacks and the weapon art. The main weapon of this build is Morgott's curved sword, and that at max level has one of the lowest physical damage compared with other curved greatswords, with an attribute scaling in strength of D, B in dexterity, and D in arcane, with not so bad attribute requirements, but it forces you to use a dexterity arcane build with it. One thing to note that with curved greatswords might look slower, but they have the same speed compared to normal greatswords. The main differences of Morgott's curved sword with the rest of the curved greatswords are first, it has the longest reach of them all, the highest blood loss buildup of 85, and the nice weapon art called Cursed Blood Slice that with this particular build you will increase its damage. This skill has a 20 FP cost and will charge forward to deliver a downward diagonal slice that will inflict bleed, followed by a burst of flame doing fire damage, so quite a combination there, and has the possibility to do an additional follow-up attack. If you hit the skill button again mid-animation, you can obtain it after defeating Morgott the Omen King, his boss of Elden capital. After receiving the remembrance of the Omen King, you need to go to Round Table Hold and talk to Finger Reader Enya, that's the old lady sitting next to the big two fingers, and exchange the remembrance for the curved greatsword. So cool, you got the main weapon covered, but to increase even more the bleed buildup and attack power of the build, and of course because I love the power stance, you need a second curved greatsword to achieve that. I wanted to do a Morgott dual wield, but the damage was really lacking and I was sacrificing the Ash of War and affinity of the offhand weapon. Then my next guess to power stance was Bloodhound's Fang, but you can add an Ash of War or bleed affinity to it to increase blood buildup, even though it's a powerful sword. So I decided to go with Blood Omen Cleaver that will give me exactly that. The chance to add Seppuku Ash of War to apply the bleed effect, increasing the blood loss buildup and attack power. Also the chance to apply bleed affinity to increase the blood loss buildup to 133 on a max weapon. It scales C with strength, C with dexterity, and D with arcane, and goes really well with this dexterity arcane build. You can get the offhand weapon by killing any Omen enemies that are wielding it. The first one to encounter is on the big armored courtyard in Stormvale Castle. You can farm it, spawning close to it in the lift side chamber side of Grace. While power stancing with these two weapons, you won't get the curved greatsword buff that was introduced in patch 1.06. But with this kind of power, you really don't need to. that you just need to get comfortable with it and learn when to strike. The rest of the armaments are a small dagger to cast the Golden Vow Ash of War and the Dragon Communion Seal to cast Flame Grant Me Strength or Flame Cleanse Me. I chose this seal because of the 0 weight it has. For the armor, I started using the full Drake Knight set and had to use the Graveyard Talisman to help me with the weapon load, but decided to go back to the meta of the White Mask and Raptor's Black Feathers to maximize the damage a Bleed build can do, and also to be able to use a different talisman to do even more damage. But you know I'm pro Fashion Souls, but when I'm not on boss fights, I change it back to Mask of Confidence to look good. But on boss fights, the helm is the White Mask, chest is the Raptor's Black Feathers, Drake Knight Gauntlets, and Drake Knight Greaves. Now it's time to look at the talisman of this build. The first one is Lore of Blood Exultation that raises attack power by 20% for 20 seconds when bloodlust occurs in the vicinity. It drops from the boss Esgar Priest of Blood in Lanedale Catacombs at Lanedale Capital. Next is Fire Scorpion Charm that will increase fire damage by 12%. But increases physical damage taken by 10%. This will increase the flame damage that the Curse Bolt Slice will do. It can be found to the west of Fort Layet in Malgarmir, near the Volcano Manor on the ramparts on a wooden platform. Next is the Shard of Alexander that will increase attack power of skills by 15%. It dropped from Iron Fist Alexander after completing his questline. He's a big jar NPC that you first met west of Stormvale Castle in Lingrave, where you kick him out of the ground. And finally, the Claw Talisman that will increase the jump attack damage by 15%. It's found on Stormvale Castle. Please check the description down below for the exact location of all of the talismans of this build. Now for the Physique flask, you can use Flame Shrouding Crack Tier that will increase fire attacks by 20% and it stacks with the Fire Scorpion Charm and lasts for 3 minutes. Will increase the flame attack of the Cursed Blood Slice skill. It drops by the Earth Tree avatar found at the Minor Earth Tree in Caelid. It's east of the Smoldering Church. Next is the Stonebarb Crack Tier that for 30 seconds will do a stance damage by 30%. Before a challenging or boss fight you will use this and have to be aggressive to hit the most of this 30 seconds window to be able to do the stance break and then a critical attack to do massive damage. It's obtained by killing the Putrid avatar near the second Minor Earth Tree in Caelid. So both tiers are obtainable in Caelid, so fairly mid-game. As Incantations only got a buff and a debuff, so the first one is a buff, Flame Grant Me Strength, that will increase physical damage and fire damage by 20%, and +5 stamina recovery, lasts 30 seconds and can be found behind Fort Gale in Caelid between the mechanical flamethrowers. This incantation goes well with the weapon art because we will increase the fire damage of it. And next is the debuff called Flame Cleanse Me that is just a debuff incantation to get rid of poison and rot and its buildup. It's found in the Fire Monk camp southeast of the Church of Vows in Liurna of the Lakes. The buff sequence before a challenging or boss fight will be first Golden Vow Ash of War, Flame Grant Me Strength, change your offhand to be two-handed and apply Seppuku, then get back to power stancing and take the Physique flask last, and you are ready to go. So now let's talk about attributes. So the main attributes of this build are Dexterity, Arcane, and Vigor. Dexterity being the most important attribute because the scaling of the weapons B and C, so in order to do the most physical damage we have to put the most points in Dexterity. But again, since it's a bleed build, and the weapons also scale with Arcane, it's no brainer to make Arcane the second most important attribute for damage and bleed buildup. And lastly, Vigor, because not having heavy armor on this build, you will need a good HP pool to survive. The character I'm using is a Rebirth Vagabond, so a few of the attributes that I'm not using might differ from you if you're using a different class. So now, if you're creating this build from the beginning, you can start selecting a hero, a samurai, or a warrior, or even a wretch if you like the challenge. I know it's a late game build, but if you want to start creating it, I'll start from a level 50 character. I will need to have the stats around this value. Vigor at 30 to start with a good HP pool. Mine at 10, no points here now. Endurance at 11, no points here now. Strength at 19 to meet the requirement of the Omen Cleaver. Dexterity at 34 to meet the requirements of Omen Cleaver and do the most damage possible. Intelligence at 9, no points here ever. Faith at 9, no points here now. Arcane at 7, no points here now. After level 50, you need to start adding points to Arcane to improve the bleed buildup. So for this level 50 character, you won't have the Morgott Cursed Greatsword. What you can do is farm 2 Omen Cleavers to use as weapons while you get the Morgott sword. For a level 100 character, the attributes spread look like this. Vigor at 40, keep with the high HP pool, Mind at 12, Endurance at 12, no more points in Strength since we met the requirements for Omen Cleaver and the Morgott Curse Sword, Dexterity at 50, the more points in Dexterity, the more physical damage you're gonna do, and we already met the requirement of 35 for Morgott's Curse Sword, Intelligence at 9, Faith at 15, we can now use Flame Armor Strength, Arcane at 22, we continue to add more points in Arcane for damage and blood loss improvement. For a level 150 character, you should have already Morgott's Curse Sword and almost all the items for this build, so the attribute spread looked like this. Vigor at 50, Mind at 20, Endurance at 16, Strength at 19, Dexterity at 70, Intelligence at 9, Faith at 15, and Arcane at 30. For a level 200 character like the one I'm playing, the attribute spread looked like this. Vigor at 65, Mind at 26, Endurance at 20, Strength at 19, Dexterity at 80, Intelligence at 9, Faith at 15, and Arcane at 45. Although I'm power stancing with Morgott's Curse Sword and Omen Cleaver and not getting the patch 1.06 buff, this Dexterity, Arcane, or Bleed Fire build, the damage is really powerful, and I dare to say that it doesn't need it, because using the bleed meta is still the king of damage in Elden Ring. And if you can manage to play properly, time your strikes and land your jump attacks and power stancing combos, adding the Cursed Blood Slice weapon art, you're good to go and kill everything in your playthrough. This late game build is really easy to put together and can be a feast to your eyes with the Cursed Blood Slice skill, so I recommend 100% you try it. So I hope you guys enjoyed the bleed train this time, and hopefully in the near future I can do a build with another bleed weapon. If you're using a build with Morgott's Curse Sword, please share your experience down in the comments below, or let me know what other bleed weapon do you want me to try next. If you found this video helpful, please hit that like button so YouTube share it with more people, and subscribe if you don't want to miss build videos like this one. Thank you everybody for watching, and I really appreciate you. So as always guys, be safe and see you on the next one. Ciao!